Hi, welcome to the Four Keys webinar. I'm so glad that you are here. In fact, I'm really thrilled because this is something that's close to my heart and also that I think is really important, so the four keys. And what I mean by the four keys are the four keys to your emotional genius. And the more that I work with this information, the more that this title makes sense. Now, let me backtrack a little bit. My name is Anshin Texter. I am a licensed dynamic emotional integration trainer and consultant. I teach courses about emotions at empathyacademy.org. I also do in-person workshops and one-on-one consultations. I am talking about the four keys today. This is a system of looking at emotions, maybe you could call it, developed by Carla McLaren. She wrote a book called The Language of Emotions. And this book is based on the understanding that emotions are essential to who we are as humans. And each emotion has something important to tell us. It's almost like each emotion represents a little tiny part of ourselves. And if we don't listen to that part of ourselves, then we're missing out on something important that's going to help us feel more fulfilled and whole and capable and alive and all the things that emotions help us to feel. One of the most foundational things to this work are the four keys. And I sent you a handout in my prior emails to you to give you a chance to go over them. And what I'm going to do is go over them rather quickly first, and then I'm going to go over them at a more leisurely pace so we can really talk about it. But before I do that, I want to start with a practice to help welcome you here, to welcome all of you here, all of your emotions, your physical body, your mind, and how you might be feeling emotionally. Now, this practice is called Comfort Body, and it's a really lovely practice to help you tune into yourself and to help you get to know what you need to help you feel comfortable. Now, I'm going to be using this practice throughout this webinar, and I just want you to just start to notice. And what the whole point of this is to help you understand and to start listening to the more subtle cues that your body gives you about what you're feeling. And that includes your physical body. As a massage therapist, I came to this work as a massage therapist, and I learned when I was working on other people's bodies that we hold emotion in our bodies physically. And oftentimes when we don't address those emotions, it will present as pain. It will show up as, oh, I've got this kink in my shoulder that I just can't get out. Or I've got this knife that feels like in my back. Or, oh, my hips are acting up again. And what I found is that each person tends to have like a certain place that they put these emotions in their body. It's almost like a storage unit. When you can become aware of how your body feels and listen to it and address it, make it more comfortable, then that can help you also listen to your emotions. It's all connected. The more that you're able to tune into your physical body, the more you will be able to tune into your emotional body as well. For this practice of Comfort Body, I invite you to get comfortable as much as you are able. If you can sit back, relax. You might even close your eyes a little bit and feel into these words. Comfort, relaxation, ease, now, is there anything that came to you that you could do for yourself to help you feel more comfortable at this time, more relaxed, more at ease. And it can be something as simple as closing the door, or maybe you forgot to take your vitamins this morning and they're burning a hole in your pocket and you're just going to go take them right now. Or maybe you notice, like, oh, I really need to use the bathroom. I haven't had a time all day long. And I'm going to go do that right now. I really invite you to just check in with yourself and see if there's something that your body or your mind is asking for. Something that would help you feel more comfortable and at ease right now. Something that I always do before my webinars is I always make sure that I have a glass of water nearby. And I always check in with my comfort body before, because I'm going to be sitting here for an hour in front of you.
That's why I ran off to get my wrap. And
exactly. Yeah, you were anticipating.
Yes. I've taken classes with you before. This is a practice. Absolutely. There we go.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's so important to be doing these things for yourself. This is the beginning of checking in with yourself and noticing what you're feeling, both physically, but also leads to an emotional awareness, an awareness of what you're feeling emotionally. Something I would like to recognize before we go into these 4 keys is the wisdom that you already carry about your emotions. Each of you has had long lives that have filled you with emotional knowledge of your own emotions, of other people's emotions. And I want to honor this experience. I'm only an expert in the work of Carla McLaren. I'm not an expert in your emotions. You're the expert in your own emotions. But what I have forms a foundation that can help you understand what your emotions are trying to tell you. And once I help you make that bridge to understanding, to being able to listen to the language of your emotions, then there's no telling where you can go with it. There's so much possibility and just expansion available to you when you are willing to listen, when you're able and open to listen to your emotions. And so I just want to honor that wisdom and information that you already hold. And I encourage you to honor that and recognize that in yourself too. Don't give away your power to other people who tell you they know what you think or what you feel. You are the only one who really knows. And that is so important when we're talking about emotions, because emotions are this thing that tell you what you want. They tell you what's important to you. They tell you if something feels right or doesn't feel right. And it's up to you to learn to listen to them. And when you develop that relationship, then you trust them more. You trust yourself more. And that leads to all kinds of wonderful things. So let's do key number 1. All emotions are equal. All emotions have value. Another way of putting this is that there are no negative emotions. The newspapers and psychology magazines are really, really happy about assigning a good or bad label to emotions. Medical doctors, too, tend to like to do this. Or, gosh, when I was pregnant, I heard all the time, oh, don't get too emotional, or don't get too emotional because that's bad for the child. Talk about a lot of pressure. But also, it's not acknowledging that each emotion has a message for you, and that message is inherently valuable. Something that we confuse with this is when we don't listen to our emotions and just kind of stuff them down, we repress them, right? Or maybe we express them all over everybody else. That's not really honoring your emotions. That's kind of just getting rid of them as fast as you can without really listening to what they want to say. And that's also what can give emotions a bad rap, right? So I'll use myself as an example. For years, I thought that the only emotion that I could have was happiness. And so I was really good at stuffing all the emotions down. I was like, just keep stuffing them down. And it began to kind of, they all began to seep out at the edges. And the more that I thought that, oh, I can only be happy, all these other emotions are bad, the less happy I was, the more repressed, and the more I felt like I was holding on to like a, this is a funny analogy, like a compost bin with a lid on that was trying to explode. Like, oh no, I got to keep it in, but it's fermenting. What do I do? When you are able to listen to what your emotions are telling you, and we're going to go over some more ways you can do that later in this webinar. When you're able to listen to it, then that helps you hear what they had to say. And I'll be the first to admit that what your emotions have to tell you is not always easy to hear. It might be something that you really don't want to hear, that you have, maybe you have a lot of investment in not hearing it. One good example is if your relationship with your business partner is not working out anymore, and maybe they're not doing their share of the work, but you're invested, right? You've got all this energy and time and money into this relationship. And if part of you is saying, wow, this really isn't working anymore, I can't stand this person, they're not doing what they say they're doing, they're not following through, they're giving this business a bad name. And this other part of you, right, that doesn't want to listen, that's saying, hey, you got to make this work at any cost, including the cost of your sanity. Which one do you think is going to win? I mean, it's really tempting to try to just keep going forward. And honestly, that's what I would do. Except that if you keep ignoring what your emotions are telling you, they don't go away. They go somewhere. And either they build up inside of you, or they kind of go sideways, and maybe they show up as some kind of habit or something that's taking your attention and energy. It might show up as apathy, which is an emotion that shows up when there's not really something you can do about what's happening. And it can also show up as depression, which is all about, it's called the stop sign of the soul, right? So it's the emotion that is showing you, hey, this is not working. But essentially what's going to happen is you're going to grind to a halt. And then because you have nothing else to look forward to, you're going to have to look around and say, well, where has my energy gone? Why was it sent away? And it comes back to this business partner that wasn't doing their share of the work, and that who you needed to talk to. Maybe you had a fear of confrontation, or maybe anger and standing up for yourself was not something that you were taught to do, or that was acceptable. I'll use myself as an example, as a woman, right? But we've come back around. Your emotions have brought you back around to this same position. If you'd listened in the beginning of, oh, hey, this isn't working out, I need to do something, rather than going down the long side of repression or explosive expression and I'm just losing the word. When you are an island, and teenagers do this, I just said the word. Anyway, the kind of emotion where you're apathetic. There we go, apathy. When you're apathetic, right? And then into depression. Like, it just brings you back to, you gotta listen. You might as well just listen. Otherwise, life is difficult, let me tell you. So the first key, all emotions have value. And if you can just listen to them, if you can just listen to what it has to say. And we're gonna talk about ways to listen. The second key is emotions come in different intensities. And if you had a chance to look at your emotional vocabulary list, it lists emotions in different intensities. It is a really wonderful tool that tells you, well, it doesn't tell you anything. It really gives you lots of options to help you identify what you're feeling. When you can identify what you're feeling, say, for example, one morning you wake up and you're just like in this fog of fatigue and you're just, oh, I'm so tired. If you take out your emotional vocabulary list and you just take a look at it and let yourself kind of listen, like, oh, you know, is it apathy? No. Is it depression? Yeah, maybe there's a little depression in here. Is it confusion? Yes, there's definitely confusion in here. And I am feeling kind of a soft, like low, downregulated, lack of clarity kind of things. If you can use your tools, and the emotional vocabulary list is available for free on my site. You can just click and download it. You don't have to submit your email address or anything. Then you can take a look. And they're organized into 3 categories of intensity. There's soft, mood state, and intense emotions. Now, most of us recognize emotions in their intense state. And that's because we tend to ignore emotions when they're soft and mood state. Oftentimes, we may not even be aware that we're experiencing an emotion in its intense state either. But that sounds like a topic for a training. So when you are able to notice an emotion in an intense state, so say, for example, you were up for a promotion at work and your boss gave it to somebody else who was totally not qualified and did not deserve it, you might be really angry about that. In fact, you might feel that you deserved it and feel just totally incensed that you didn't get it. You might consider quitting, doing all these things, because anger is about knowing what is important to you, knowing what you value, and protecting it, taking steps to protect and restore what's important to you. Now, you can recognize intense anger because of how it feels in your body and because of what you're noticing with your mind. And each of us kind of presents differently. Now, I'm curious if you can think of a time when you were intensely angry, and if you can recognize what you noticed in your body. How did you know that you were angry? Is it because of a physical sensation? Or is it because of your thoughts and what you were thinking of and what you're thinking of doing? Take a minute to reflect and maybe even take notes about what you notice with an instance of intense anger. Now, if you have a mood state emotion, so if your anger is in its mood state, then you might not feel so intensely angry. You might not feel like you have to act right now, but it will still be very present, right? It could be something as simple as getting correct change at the grocery store. Maybe you notice that you're overcharged for something from your basket, and you would just like them to make this right. You would just like them to, give you the difference or whatever it is. And that has a different feeling in your body, right? It doesn't have the going off the edge kind of I'm going to do something drastic to make this right feel. It has of course, this is what would be right for me. It's very clear. It's clear cut. And I invite you to notice if you can think of an instance when you've felt that kind of anger. when you've noticed that kind of anger in your body. Yeah, and great idea, Julie. Just, yeah, feel free to get up and move around if that feels better for you. Where does it show up in your body? Where does it present? And it can be, you know, any part of your body. It could be just outside of your body. As humans, we are also in possession of something called a boundary. And that's, you can think of it as the personal space around your body. And you can also feel things in that space as well. So if you tune in, you might notice that your boundary feels different when you have, when you're in a mood state anger, when you're experiencing anger in its mood state. And I'm just using anger because it's one of my very favorite emotions. And everybody should be a friend to anger because it is such a powerful and also such a loving emotion. But this anger is, it just wants to make things right. It doesn't want to hurt anybody. It doesn't want to take anything else away, right? It just wants things to be balanced. It's like, hey, pay attention, right? And then let's talk about like soft state. Soft state emotions are often emotions that, well, it's an emotion often we don't even notice when it's in its soft state. Now, a common soft emotion that we don't think of as such is curiosity is your soft fear. Curiosity is really a lovely little emotion because it focuses your attention on one thing, and it doesn't, a lot of time people don't often associate curiosity with fear, but fear is about orienting to change. And when you are curious, you are actively seeking out information about your environment around you, or, you know, things that are happening to help you understand what's going on. Another example of your soft fear is your intuition. You are listening to your intuition, and it gives you very, you know, subtle cues that only you can really know what they are. And oftentimes it's something that you learn to listen to, right? It's not something, well, I would say that as children, right, we all are good at listening to our intuition. And then at some point we learn not to because we're ashamed for listening to our emotions. And then we learn to listen to it again. At least that's the trajectory that I've seen in myself and in a lot of other people as well, right? As children, we understand emotions, we get it, and then we learn that we're not supposed to have them somehow in being teenagers in our early 20s. And then we go through this trajectory of not listening to the outside world so much and the shoulds of society, but listening to ourselves more and more. And that's where listening to our emotions comes back. And listening to your intuition. An example of soft anger might be paying attention to your plants in the garden. And if there's going to be a freeze, going out and putting a blanket on them to protect them from freezing. And so that's an example of something you wouldn't necessarily think of as anger, but it is, you're taking an action to protect something that is important to you. And that thing can be a thing, it can be a place, right? If you make donations to the wildlife fund, it could be for animals, or, you know, you might have a special connection with the Grand Canyon. So it can be with places, it can be with things, it can be with animals, it can also be with people. It's just whatever is important to you. The third key, let's talk about the third key. Emotions arise in multiples. And let me decipher that. What that actually means is that even though you might think that, oh, I'm just feeling one emotion right now, and that's rage or anger, or maybe I'm just really content, or maybe I'm in this state of calm, you're often experiencing multiple emotions. earlier today when I was getting ready for this webinar, I was noticing that I was feeling anxious, but also excited and happy because I'm anticipating. I'm like, oh, this is exciting. I get to talk about some of my favorite topics. This is great. But I was also anxious because I really wanted to be prepared and do it right, whatever that means. and then I noticed that I was kind of spinning my wheels a bit with the anxiety of thinking, oh, I need to do this and this, but it wasn't grounded to-do list. It was, I need to move the Empire State Building over here, and then I need to clean my entire house, and then I need to get my tires rotated on my car. It's like all these things. No, actually you don't. And so I brought in some sadness to help me be present in my body and to let go of those things I didn't need. And so I actually consciously welcomed in another emotion to help me manage what I was feeling and to help me regulate what I was feeling. And that's a big part of working with your emotions, is learning what helps you to regulate what you're feeling, what helps you to moderate what you're feeling so that it's not always at an extreme, right? Either extreme intensity or extreme on the other direction where you don't feel like you're feeling anything, but where you can be in the middle and just more aware and present with what's actually going on. This brings me to the fourth key, which is once you understand all these other keys, that that all your emotions have value, that they come in different intensities and often come together, then you can begin to channel your emotions. The fourth key is to learn to channel your emotions. And what that means is you're learning to communicate about your emotions, both with yourself, right? You're learning to listen to them and name them and work with them in a conscious way rather than that subconscious way that most of us just kind of exist with our emotions. We react to them without actually consciously being aware of what we're doing. When you are consciously aware that you're experiencing an emotion, when you can name it, often with the help of your emotional vocabulary list, but you don't have to use it. You can just name it whatever you want. But as long as you can name that emotion, then oftentimes your body knows what to do with it. And if you name it, that also brings it to your conscious awareness. So if it's something that's complicated, you can decide what to do about it. Oftentimes, the first time you'll become aware of an emotion is when it's really intense. So let's go back to that scenario of you didn't get the raise or the promotion that you wanted at work, and this other person, this totally undeserving slug of a person, got it. Seriously, right? So there's some anger there because you deserved it, right? And there's some vulnerability there, which is a part of anger because you asked for it. You worked hard for it. You put it out there that you wanted it. You showed that you cared. And you didn't get it. Oh, the disappointment. Now, with channeling your anger, instead of repressing what you're feeling back inside and maybe telling yourself a story or expressing it and exploding over the office and blowing up at your boss or at this person who got the promotion instead of you, instead of doing those things, you have another option. And this is what dynamic emotional integration is kind of created around, is teaching people how to channel their emotions. Because it's not, it's not easy. It is a simple process, but it is not easy. And oftentimes that's because emotions are not very comfortable to experience. When I was feeling anxious earlier today and I recognized that I needed to bring in some sadness to help me get grounded and be more present in my body and be more present with what actually needed to happen, I didn't want to, because it meant that I had to feel the little butterflies in my stomach and the way that the energy in my body is all kind of like wound up, like stuff to do, woo. And And it was that kind of subconscious wanting to avoid what I was feeling that created a little tension within me. And I'm telling you this because understanding that the way to work with your emotions is by channeling them, by working with them consciously, by being able to talk about what you're feeling without lashing out at somebody else, and also without turning it inward on yourself, but just being able to state what you're feeling and what you're noticing about what you're feeling in a way that is respectful and also gets across what you want or what you need from the situation. That is channeling your emotions. And it's one thing to understand it, it's another thing to be able to do it. In my upcoming course, Befriending Anger, that starts in January, I do have a piece in the course about channeling emotions and specifically channeling anger, because it is so important, and it is, it's not something that we're taught to do. I certainly wasn't. I was brought up in a family where if you wanted to talk about something, you used sarcasm. And so you talk about it, but you wouldn't talk about it. And so we never could actually say what we felt or what we really thought about things. When you are comfortable with channeling what you're feeling, and it's funny, I have a hard time using the word channeling because oftentimes we associate it with like channeling a mystic or channeling some kind of a spirit guide. But your emotions are the best guide for you that you can get anywhere. Your emotions are there for you. They don't exist for anybody else. It's like they're your best friend and they know you better than you do. And while your emotions might tell you something that you don't want to hear, what they tell you is always true for you. It may not be appropriate for the situation, and that's okay, right? You know, you might go to a funeral and like tell yourself, well, thank God that guy is dead. Seriously, right? But you're not going to express that on the outside. Your emotions are your own, it's your internal life, and it's great to have it. And what they're telling you is so important for you to hear. It is what you think. You know, it's not the only thing you think. Remember, you experience multiple emotions. So part of you might be sad that this person died, and part of you might be relieved, and part of you might be celebrating and saying, all right, I'm ready to go on without this person in my life. Great. But it's all there. And honestly, as human beings, we're so much more, we have so many more facets than what we see in society, what we see in pop culture. And it's funny, I feel like we think of ourselves as like single panes of glass, like, oh, here I am, it's all me right here. But there's so much more to us. And acknowledging that within ourselves is, I think, a really big step towards working with our emotions, all of our emotions, even the bad ones, right? Even the ones that tell you the things you don't want to hear, right? That's another way of putting it. So even of working with depression, which is telling you, hey, this way of doing workshops all the time for people is not working for you. And you are not the kind of person to do this stuff. I went through an experience where I signed up to be a life coach, and they gave me this whole business plan, and I was going to work. They gave me a script for workshops and a PowerPoint and all this stuff. And I was like, oh, it's already there. Great. I can just slip right in and go do this stuff. And what I didn't know is that doing somebody else's material was completely wrong for me. It was exhausting. It was inauthentic. And I felt like I was faking it every single minute. And I was so invested. Part of me was so invested in this that I couldn't listen. I would not let myself see the signs of burnout, the signs of depression, just the physical fatigue that it brought on me because of what I was trying to do. Plus, I'm not an extrovert. I'm a total introvert. I need my personal time, and I'm not a public figure. I have no desire to be a public figure. I really like teaching online courses from my house, which is what I do. And I was, in a way, I was dishonoring all these other parts of myself because I thought it was more important to follow this other person's idea of what a business should be. And I did that until I couldn't anymore, until I couldn't bring myself to hold another workshop, until I couldn't bring myself to get excited about this stuff anymore. And then I was in confusion for a long time because I was really confused about why I couldn't have what I thought I wanted. And it took a lot of time to, one, really allow myself to listen to what my emotions were truly telling me. I had many filters telling me that I could only feel certain things. And if I was feeling depressed, or if I was feeling sad or grieving about something, or if I was feeling afraid of something, then that was not an emotion I could listen to, and I had to keep moving forward. I just had to keep moving forward. So it was a long time of honestly not moving forward. I was barely treading water, and finally I decided I was too tired. I just had to stop. And it was a combination of emotional and physical exhaustion that caused me to stop and to recognize this is not working. Something here is not working, and it's not my fault. This is just not the right thing for me. And the way I'm talking about it, it sounds really simple, but it wasn't. It was a long, drawn out, messy process. But one of the wonderful things about when you really start listening to your emotions is that they do magical things for you. I honestly, I feel like listen to your emotions is a spiritual path, because it's not what anybody else wants. It's what you want. It's not what anybody else wants for you, even if they think that will be what's best for you, even if that's what society says is what's best for you. It's what you actually want yourself, for yourself. And it's also, it's the root of your hopes and your dreams as a child. So as you are more able to listen to what your emotions are telling you, as you're able to uncover those filters, as you're able to take away those filters that say, oh no, I can't be that, I'm too short, or oh, I can't be that, I'm not smart enough, or oh, I can't be that, I always have to present as a strong, independent woman all the time, and I can't show my weakness, right? Or I can't, as you start to peel away those layers of I can't, or I shouldn't, or I have to be, or this is what I am, and so I have to do that all the time, then you reveal who you really are and what you really want. Now, I want to go back to the beginning and go to Comfort Body. Comfort Body, I think, let's use this practice as a way to kind of physically and emotionally access an experience of the four keys, of these different kind of emotional truths about ourselves. So I invite you to get comfortable again. And maybe during this time you've been noticing like, oh, my neck is really funky right now, or I need to get up and walk around. And I invite you to take the time to do that. If you like, you can sit back and relax, or maybe you would like to stretch yourself out. Oh yeah, that feels good. And now I invite you to notice, have you been ignoring certain sensations or feelings that are they just now starting to talk to you? What might that be? Have you noticed that you were ignoring some emotion or some sensation that now you're making space for? Like, oh, it's okay to notice that my foot has gone numb, or now, oh, yeah, it's okay to notice that I need to move my legs around. That was uncomfortable to me before. And as you notice that. Are there certain needs that talk more loudly to you? Maybe there is a part of your body saying, hey, I'm hungry, feed me, or gosh, I'm so thirsty, I need something, right? Maybe there was a part of you that was just kind of softly saying, I'm so tired, I'm really ready to go home. Or maybe a part of you is softly saying, I'm really excited to go dance tonight. This is like, I've been looking forward to this. What parts of you are talking? And notice, how does that show up in your body? Is it a physical sensation that you notice? Is it like a thought that's tugging at the side of your mind? Is it something that you notice within your boundary or within your personal space? Either moving you forward or holding you back. As you get more comfortable with comfort body, you're going to start noticing different parts of you, right? All these different facets of you. Not just the physical body, but also your emotional body, and saying, I really need to get out of work by 4:30 so I can miss traffic, because that is such a headache for me. This is so important to me right today. Like, it's my sanity is hanging on this right now. But as you're able to check in with yourself more regularly and on more and more subtle levels, then that's when you are channeling your emotions within the practice of comfort body. And so what we just did, where you were checking with yourself and seeing if you were ignoring certain feelings or emotions, that might relate to the first key of, well, all emotions have value, right? But sometimes we prefer certain ones over other emotions, right? There might be certain parts of your body that you pay more attention to than other parts. And also with the different intensities. So key number 2, emotions come in different levels of intensity. Same thing, different parts of your body might speak at different levels. And this is something to kind of play with over time. I mean, comfort body is a practice that you can do, anywhere, honestly. You can do it in your car. You can do it at work. You can do it at home. You can do it in front of the TV. It's a personal practice, right? And it can be very subtle adjustments that you make. It can even be something that's not physical, but entirely within your mind. Say, for example, setting a mental boundary between you being at work and being at home. I was just reading a book called, it's a memoir of a chef, and he talks about being in the kitchen and essentially being abused by the top chef in the kitchen, and how terrible that was for him, but also how he learned to put a mask on when he went into work, right? He composed his face differently, and it was like, all right, everything's going to bounce off me as he went in. And one that was just so hard for me to read. I was reading it last night and it kept me awake. I was thinking about how terrible this was, that he had to do this as part of his work. But if you can do that, then you can do the opposite too. You can take it off and be aware that you're doing it. And one that's something that we call a threshold in DEI and in our courses at Empathy Academy. And it's one of the ways that you can set it's kind of like a mental boundary for yourself. And we do these in different ways to show ourselves that we're transitioning from one thing to another. Let's see, intensities. Oh yeah, and then the third one is multiple emotions. So there might be different parts of your body talking to you. And as you become more familiar with this, you might be able to recognize, like, oh, I'm holding something in my liver, or I'm holding something in my right shoulder that always talks to me. When I'm not taking appropriate care of myself, right? When I'm trying to get too much stuff done. And for me, I know that if I had unlimited energy, I would use it. I wouldn't sleep. I would just keep going and doing stuff. Like, that's my ultimate dream right there. But it's been a process for me to honor and recognize my need for rest and for sleep. And that's a completely different part of myself that I have had to learn to listen to and acknowledge, as much as my desire to go and do and act and create things. And your emotions are similar. There might be emotions that you really like and emotions that you dread, right? Having them come up, you're like, oh no, not the depression again. That means I have to do something hard, right? Or not the anger. Oh, I have to confront this person. Oh God, I don't want to do that. But, and this leads us to the fourth key, as you learn to do these things, as you listen to your emotions, and as you learn to listen to your emotions at mood and then softer intensities, as you become aware, like, oh, there goes that shoulder again. Oh yeah, I do need to talk to my landlord about this fee that he's instigating, that I don't want this thing. Okay, I'm going to talk to him tonight. Okay, I feel better. And as you become aware at those softer and softer intensities, then that better enables you to channel your emotions and to work with them, to be aware of what's happening and to work with what your body is trying to tell you in a conscious way. Now, oftentimes when we experience emotions, we just react, right, without thinking about it. And when you're channeling emotions, you are, are you reacting? You're acting in a conscious way with all of the information. And it takes time to do this. Believe me. I'm sure you believe me. So those are the 4 keys. They are actually very simple, right? But it's also a matter of connecting the information out there to how it presents in your body. What does it feel like when you are experiencing an emotion that maybe you don't like, or maybe you have some thoughts that it's a bad emotion? And what you need to do is just recognize it first of all. You don't have to say, yay, it's a good emotion, or, oh, whatever. It's just a matter of recognizing, oh, I'm experiencing an emotion. Being able to name what you're experiencing. Oh, okay, that's some anger there, and I'm definitely afraid right here, and I'm feeling some confusion over here. Okay, you don't have to have a judgment about what you're feeling. And this is really important. Oftentimes we have a judgment that we're supposed to feel only certain emotions and not other ones. But if you can just name everything that you're feeling, that is a huge first step to channeling your emotions and to working consciously with your emotions. Now, you have the tools to go forward in working with your emotions. You have the 4 keys PDF and also the emotional vocabulary list PDF. So you have those going forward, and you can actually just whip out that emotional vocabulary whenever you're kind of foggy about what you're feeling and say, okay, I am feeling, maybe this too. Okay, right? If you're able to name what you're feeling, then that is going to help your body and your mind know what to do with it. It's this subconscious magic that happens. And our bodies and our minds are so much more intelligent than we give them credit for. And oftentimes you can just let that happen. If you want to know more, then you can take a course at Empathy Academy. EmpathyAcademy.org has courses every month all about emotions. I have courses there, but also there are other licensed trainers who have really wonderful courses. There's a huge variety now. And I really encourage you to take a look and see if there's something that appeals to you. If you want to know more about your emotions specifically, you can schedule a consultation with one of the DEI consultants. There is an entire consultants page on dynamicemotionalintegration.org. And gosh, there's so many. I think there's about 12 consultants now. There might be more. And each of us has our own specialties. So if you are struggling with depression, then there's probably somebody who works specifically with that. Or if you just you don't understand why you keep doing these same habits or these same patterns and you want to break out of that, there's somebody who works with that. So I really encourage you to take a look if that's something that is interesting to you. And then if you'd like to work with me, I have a course coming up called Befriending Anger that starts in January. It's a 4-week course, and it is so much fun because we're talking about anger. And it's funny because we think of anger as this bad, scary emotion. At least I did for a long time, and I didn't know what to do with it. And this course is all about how anger is your friend, and it is your best friend in so many ways. It takes care of you. It shows you what's important to you. And this course is teaching you about how to work with it and how to understand what it really wants, what it's really trying to tell you, and how to work with it in a way that feels good to you. It also is a course that helps you understand all of your emotions. It doesn't just talk about anger. It helps you understand how your anger interacts with your other emotions. And it gives you a whole bunch of other skills and tools and practices. This course also includes 4 live webinars. So kind of like the one we did today with more interaction and less me talking. It has a forum where you can post questions and comments, and it has a whole lot of curriculum to read through and not PDFs, audio files to listen to with the practices. So there's all kinds of really good stuff there, and that's on empathyacademy.org. It's also on my website called emotionalliance.com. And I have one more thing that I want to invite you to. If you are in the Eugene area, I'm having a 4-week workshop here in Eugene on Saturdays from 10 to noon. It's called I'm So Emotional, and is an introductory workshop to emotions. We're going to talk about we just talked about the 4 keys, right? We're going to go over the 4 keys, but we're also going to play emotion theater as a tabletop game. And this is a game that Carla McLaren developed with actual people. We're going to do it on the table because it requires about 30 people, and that's a lot of people to work with. We are going to take inventories. We're going to go over the 4 emotion families and talk about what they're actually asking of you. And we're also going to go over the 5 empathic mindfulness practices. We're actually going to practice them and also talk about when you can use them and how you can implement them in your daily life. And of course, there's plenty of time to talk about emotions. Bring your questions. It's going to be great fun. So there's also a flyer on my website for that. It's emotionalliance.com, and it's the I'm So Emotional workshop. So it is 4:59. We have come to the end of our webinar, and I just want to thank you so much for being here and for participating and for listening to me for so long. I really appreciate you showing up. It means a lot to me.
Thank you.
And I hope to see you again.
Great job. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Excellent. Most excellent. Thank you.